Hello, hello.
Hi, guys.
You are listening to the very first episode of the Haunted Heart podcast
With your hosts, Kenny
and Katie. So thanks so much for tuning in. We are brand new little podcast babies, so bear with us.
Very brand new. We've already started this a couple of times.
Yes, we are, we're getting through it. You know how it goes. But, yeah, we're so glad that you're here, and we're so glad that you're listening, and we have a lot of exciting stuff to share with you today.
To share with our family members.
Yes.
All of them, they're listening. Hi, Mom.
All three people that are listening to the podcast.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Scarlett.
So, today's topic is jilted lovers. And kind of the way that we're going to work this thing out is every week we're going to curate around a particular topic. So this week it's jilted lovers, another week it could be zombies or vampires or whatever. And we're going to kind of curate around that topic and then bring back the stories that we found most interesting that pertain to that to you. And we're going to talk about them here.
On the Haunted Heart.
On the Haunted Heart podcast.
Have you ever been a jilted lover, Katie?
I have not. I haven't ever been a jilted lover. I have many, many times been on the wrong end of unreciprocated love, but I haven't ever been in the specific situation of a jilted lover, because I would define that as somebody who is in a relationship with somebody or what have you, who either gets cheated on or that person decides that they don't love them anymore. That's kind of... And I've never necessarily been in that situation. So
you've never been like full-blown like Glenn Close
jilted
level crazy?
No, I have never been to Glenn Close level. So what about you?
You didn't know I'm married to Glenn Close.
Very true, very true. Yes. So we're going to bring some stories together that have to do with that. And we have some pretty good stuff for you this week, I think.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, that it's kind of like almost like a syndrome. It's not official, like it's not in the medical, dictionary or whatever you want to call it. So it's not official. Like being a gay used to be. But,
yes. Horrible medical diagnosis of being a human being.
Yeah, there was actually a psychologist. Her name was Dorothy Tinov. She actually coined this term called limerence to describe like...
Is that like where you write like cute little funny short poems?
Absolutely.
Limericks?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's where it comes from. You write limericks to like...
Yes.
Your
lover, right? To the person who has jilted you. There you go.
Exactly. But to describe like a temporary state of madness, and it sort of describes like these weird conditions where you have like an overestimation of the good qualities of your quote unquote beloved, and you really minimize the negative.
Yes. Yeah. I could see that because that's kind of how obsession works, and to a degree, anytime you have a crush on somebody, your brain is going to like really, really, really pick up on the good things or the good things about them, or the things that they do that you like, and you're going to minimize the stuff that maybe is a little bit irritating. It's kind of like the rose-colored glasses syndrome.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see that.
And there's also like this, and you have this like acute longing for the object of one's affection, like. That's you're laser focused.
I feel that. I mean, a lot of this, what's so interesting to me about this particular topic is that a lot of it sounds like when you have a crush on somebody. Like for me, when you are looking into this sort of thing, I think there's a very fine line that you can cross between like having a really, really, really big crush on somebody and then full out obsession.
There's a fine line.
Yeah.
Like, between being like, oh, I've got a crush on somebody, and like, oh, I really want a clipping of their hair to smell when I go to bed at night.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so I think it kind of does depend on the person. It's an interesting, and it's like a whole side tangent thing, but the idea of romantic love back in the day was very, like, if you think about the poems that, like, Shakespeare wrote and people who were contemporaries of him, a lot of them, the way that they describe love is very obsessive. It's the type of stuff that would make people uncomfortable today. So I think it's kind of a perspective thing. And I think society defines a lot of what defines obsession as something distinct from romantic love or a crush or unreciprocated love or what have you.
Well, it's different nowadays because, you get social media and you get, all of this technological influence that goes in. So it's like, back then they didn't have all that. So, like, a lock of hair, might be considered like...
Exactly.
Might be the equivalent to, like, liking someone's picture on Instagram.
Like, I 100% will go on the record on this podcast, on the first episode of this podcast, and say, I mean, I could definitely see having a lock of my lover's hair, even now. Like, I don't know. And maybe that's just, like, a me thing. But I could see that. If, like, you're in a long-distance relationship thing, like, I don't know. I could see it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just weird.
Yeah, I'm just going to go on record and say that you're weird. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We're sitting here
it's fair.
In the dark.
That's true. We are. It's a very cool vibe. We have our candles lit. We burnt some sage earlier. We have our tea. Sorry about the tea if I'm slurping in your ear and making it like an ASMR thing. That could be cool. It could be like a hybrid sort of thing.
Yeah, if you guys ever want some ASMR, just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. ASMR could be our theme one week, and we just sit here and eat for you.
Just sip tea.
I mean, I'm about it. If anybody ever wants to, if you want some really, really good ASMR, or if you don't know what ASMR is, and you're interested in it, The Chew on YouTube. She is so sweet. I absolutely love her.
Would you say that you're obsessed with her?
I would not. I would not say that I am obsessed. I don't want a lock of her hair specifically. I mean, if she sends me some, that's fine. But I'm not going to go out of my way, right? No, seriously. But she's really awesome. If you have trouble sleeping, like it can really be helpful for that. So. I mean, I watch ASMR sometimes. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, I know we're kind of like, it's kind of not the subject, but like, it's almost like a feeling of ecstasy, which is sort of the same thing that some of these people feel, because it's like, you get this sort of euphoric, like, and I think that's something that's really like chemical. Like, if it's something in your brain that makes you attracted to somebody, then their scent just sort of sends you to this weird, place.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Definitely.
Scent is a big, there's a huge connection to memory through scent. And I learned that in the fantastic film starring, oh God, now I can't remember the name of it. It stars Ashley Judd and Hugh Jackman.
Where's Alex when you need him?
I know, right? I'm not going to be able to remember it, but maybe I can post it in like the comments on our site or something, or in the description of the video. But it's so good. And in that movie, she has a terrible breakup. She actually is a jilted lover because her boyfriend cheats on her, and they break up. And she actually goes so far as to go to a doctor to have her like scent, whatever the part of the brain is that picks up scent, removed. Because, she keeps smelling, like, his cologne on, like, random guys, and it keeps upsetting her. So I always think about that. So that is my very scientific source material for the scent is linked heavily to emotion and memory thing.
Yeah. And so going forward with that, so, like, all of these are just sort of aspects of, like, this sort of obsessive, like, what you would essentially call love sickness.
Yeah.
It's... You're obsessed.
Except that makes it sound so much cuter. Love sickness.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Although it can be really ugly.
You're obsessively thinking about this other person. You feel like deep agony when, this relationship comes to an end, or they've done something that like you feel that shit to your core.
Right.
And it just... Again,
or when they just, like, don't know your name because you've actually never spoken to them.
That's like, you have these people that, create this whole world inside their
Right.
head, and they
Yeah.
are connected so, they're connected to these people, and so any little thing,
Right.
like, I'm sorry, what was your name? Like,
Right.
that's what jilts them. It's not something like normal, like, okay, this person cheated on me. It's, oh, they're talking to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what sort of takes it to that extra, that's what makes you crazy.
That's what makes you cling close.
Yes, exactly. She will not be ignored.
So, yeah. So I think in researching this week, I think I kind of came across a situation that is a little bit different from that. It's this particular situation is not necessarily. Well, it definitely incorporates obsession, maybe in a different way. But you were talking about how people kind of build this world in their own head, and they're really keyed into that, and maybe the other person isn't. This is a situation, interestingly, where two people sort of created a reality for themselves, and then one of those people got very, very upset when it didn't quite pan out that way. So it's actually I'm gonna do a case. Bear with me. It is the case of Talhotblond.
Insert case study music.
Case study music. Yeah. So so this is the first time I've ever actually kind of gone over a case this way on a podcast, and it feels really weird, and I'm sure I'm going to be terrible at it. So just bear with me, and we will get through it together. So. I didn't know about this case, interestingly enough, until I started researching for this episode, which is very unusual because I consume true crime like a maniac. I'm sure I'm on a list with the government, probably several lists. Hi, government. Maybe they're listening.
They're sitting there in some FBI lounge, and they're like, here she is.
That's amazing. What if the government is listening to our podcast?
What if they're obsessed with you?
What if they are?
There's some FBI agent. He's like, she's on.
I'm not upset about it. Hi.
It's kind of hot.
Hi, government man, FBI man. Anyway, so I hadn't heard of this case, even though I consume true crime like a maniac. It's pretty interesting, though. I'm surprised that it's not covered more widely. There's basically I'm serving up jilted lovers with a side of catfish.
Ooh.
Yes. So this particular story takes place in May 2005. So take yourself back in your mind. That's been like 13 years ago now.
Damn.
Yes. And think about the internet in 2005.
That was MySpace era.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of like it's not like 1995 when it was brand new, but I would say 2005 is kind of like the adolescence of the internet. It had gotten a lot of functionality.
ASL.
No, I think it had gotten, I think of it as the adolescence of the internet because the internet had gotten a lot of functionality, but it wasn't necessarily the sort of anonymous playground that it was today, or at least we didn't widely recognize it as that. It was like this weird thing. Like people still went to chat rooms and talked to each other on chat boards.
It wasn't as big of a concern. Because it was still, it was, you know what I mean, chat rooms and stuff like that, it was still kind of new, so I think, everybody was into it.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of this thing, not like today where it's a little bit more extreme, you get, FaceTime and, all of this other stuff, I think it was a little more accepted back then.
I see it as the opposite. I think it was more taboo. I think it was kind of whereas now we're very, if you think about Instagram and followers and the whole concept of social media circles where you may not know everybody who's on your followers list, you may not actually know all of those people. And you don't really, nowadays I don't really think we think about who might be looking at what we're posting online or what we're sharing. Whereas back in the day being 2005, May 2005, I think the whole chat room craze was a little bit, at least for me, it was taboo. I know that around that time, probably, I guess it was maybe 2000. I was young, as opposed to the elderly creature that I am now, I guess.
The hag sitting across from me.
Right. But no, back probably 2000 or so, I remember I got on my grandmother's computer and I went to this website that was called Chat Pit. Yes. And it was very fancy. It was all black. And the lettering was like pink and green and blue. And you could just chat anonymously with people. Yes, very, very chic. The height of web design. So I would just like talk with people. And I pretended to be older than I was because I think I was like maybe like, I don't know, 13.
But that's what I'm saying. Like back then, like it was so okay for like...
But it wasn't.
Under 8, but everybody was doing it. It's not like today where you get parental controls. You get, like, most people have FaceTime and, you know, webcams and all of this other stuff. And yes, we did have those back then, but it was a little more... I guess what I'm saying is it was a little bit more of a free space, and it was a little more anonymous back then than it is now. Yeah,
I would agree with that it was more truly anonymous because there weren't all these ways that we have now of, like, figuring out who people are and researching. Yeah, that's true. But I remember that in my experience, it was something like I wasn't doing anything I wasn't supposed to be doing online, but I was still like shamed when like my grandma found out that I had been like on a chat room website. It was like a big deal, and I was guilted pretty hardcore for not really doing anything. So I thought about that when I was researching this case. So to get into it here with incredibly much ado. The case of Talhotblond, you have Thomas Montgomery, who is 47 years old. He's married, and he has 2 teenage children, and he lives in Buffalo, New York. He lives in a suburb with his wife, whose name is Cindy. And he had previously been a Marine when he was younger. He never saw any action, but he did leave the armed services. Armed services? That sounds weird. Armed forces? Anyway, he left the Marines. The military. You know, military things. He left the Marines with a drinking habit, and he carried that for many, many years, and that kind of turned into a gambling addiction when the internet kind of came to prominence. So in 2005, he is on a gaming website called Pogo. And
I think I remember that.
Do you really? Pogo.com?
I think I do.
I thought about it. I didn't remember it.
I think that rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. So they apparently they had all kinds of different games, and I'm not sure if Pogo was a website that hosted games for both adults and children, or if it was just a gaming site that was geared more at kids, or what the deal was. But basically, he spent many, many hours online gaming. And he's on Pogo and gets a message from a user whose name is Talhotblond. And I want to spell it for you. It is TALHOTBLOND. So perfect. Yes. Yeah. But you don't know. Maybe the TALL was taken.
Sounds like a Starbucks order.
It does. A tall, hot blonde. Oh my gosh, it so does. I didn't even think about that. No, it totally does. So he gets a message from this Starbucks drink order, and he returned it, and soon they kind of started this like online relationship, and they were sending nudes, and yeah, and I guess they had a lot in common, and they sent pictures, and they talked at all hours of the night. He would stay up all night on the computer talking to her, and they would also send gifts. She sent him lingerie, and she even sent him a set of custom-made dog tags that read Tom and Jesse forever. So Jesse is Talhotblond's real name.
Okay.
Yes. Jessie is 18. She plays softball. And obviously she's blonde.
Tall.
Very important. I'm assuming she's also tall. And the problem here is that Thomas doesn't necessarily introduce himself as Thomas, 47-year-old, married with kids.
Ugh.
Thomas, whose username was Marine Sniper,
Ooh.
introduces himself as a 19-year-old Marine who is currently serving overseas in Afghanistan. So, obviously, you're thinking how, if they're sending pictures back and forth, like how is this 47-year-old posing to be this 19-year-old guy? He sent her his picture from when he was in the Marines 30 years prior.
Uh-huh.
And told her that was him now. But when he told the story of, currently being a Marine, when Marine Sniper is talking about, being 19, being a Marine and serving, he basically presents himself as this, like, really, like, sharpshooter, like, almost like I hate to say it because it's kind of a cliche, but almost kind of like a James Bond type character. He hints at covert ops and, like, dark deeds that he's doing for the country and yada, yada, yada. But in reality, we know that he never saw action as a Marine. He did serve, which I'm not diminishing that at all, but I think it was kind of his dream to serve in combat, and he never really quite got to fulfill that. So
he was trying to fulfill a fantasy.
Exactly. Yes, so he reinvented his younger self as way more attractive. He was 6'2". He was 190 pounds, and he had bright red hair. He had big shoulders, and this is Thomas Montgomery's words himself. He had big shoulders, muscles, and all that. And he had a 9-inch dick.
Right.
Right. Now, it might be just me, but if we're going for fantasy, is that right? I mean, I feel like if we're gonna...
I've got a 12-inch sniper.
Right. If we're gonna make it up, go for the gold, man.
That's what you were doing back then anyway, like...
Right. So, anyway.
I guess he was trying to make it more believable.
Maybe he thought...
But also still not.
Right. So he concocts this entire background of himself for this new identity, and that includes, even at times, inventing other false personas. His backstory and he called himself Tommy.
To sound young.
Exactly. Yes. He called himself Tommy. And he tells Jesse, Talhotblond, that at 17 he raped a cheerleader, and his life became so hopeless that he enlisted in the Marines. After a stint at boot camp in June to train as a sniper, he was headed to Iraq. I'm sorry, it was Iraq, not Afghanistan. So he basically invents this backstory that kind of is dark. Like, if I was going to lie to somebody to make them like me, I don't know that I would tell them that I raped people.
Raped somebody. I mean, yeah, if I was the tall, hot blonde, like, that would be like, okay.
Yeah, that was
Goodbye.
There's a lot of really interesting points in this case, but that was one for me that was kind of like, why would he tell her that? Why would he tell her that he...
That's interesting, like...
Because it's not...
Is that a truth? Like, is that something that happened, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah.
And
I don't know.
There's something that's, like, messed up within him, so when he's creating this fantasy world, either it
comes out.
It just comes out, and because he, it haunts him so much, or whatever, or, like, maybe it's a thing.
Right.
Fetish.
Or maybe it was
know.
something that he thought was attractive in a skewed way. That was a really... that was an interesting kind of thing that I stumbled across, and it's not necessarily widely publicized as part of the case. It took a little bit of digging, but yeah, that was interesting to me. But anyway, so Tommy apparently is overseas in Iraq, and in order to kind of further that story, that narrative, Thomas Montgomery actually invents another character who is Tommy's dad. So he's not only posing as Tommy, the 19-year-old hot, and in Thomas Montgomery's own words, Harrison Ford with red hair.
This guy's like a human Wii game. Like, he's got, like, all of these different little Wii characters.
Yes.
And he just gets on them.
Yeah. So he poses as Tommy's dad, and he kind of concocts these elaborate ruses where, you know, she'll get online and, oh, you know, sorry, Tommy isn't here. Tommy's, you know, away, or he wasn't able to, like, get on today or whatever, but I'll take your message and I'll relay it to Tommy. So the dad almost becomes sort of like a go-between between his imaginary version of himself and this Jesse character. So they talked on the phone every day between 6:40 a.m. and 6:50 a.m. and from 3:30 p.m. to 3:40 p.m. when Tommy told Jesse that he was off duty. In reality, those were the times that he was headed to work and coming home from work. And this thing continued for quite a while, you know, continued for quite a few months. And Thomas Montgomery told 2020 when he did an interview with them that the relationship became more real to him than real life. Even at work, he was bragging about the relationship that he had with this hot teenage girl. And he told several people at work that he was planning to leave his wife and move to West Virginia. So this thing has really kind of taken on very quickly.
Yeah, it's consumed him.
Definitely. And that's kind of a good point that it started to consume him quite literally. He on New Year's of 2006, he wrote himself a note at work. And the note read, on January 2nd, 2006, Tom Montgomery, 46 years old, ceases to exist and is replaced by an 18-year-old battle-scarred Marine. He is moving to West Virginia to be with the love of his life. And there was more to that note that went on to say something like, you know, he has millions in the bank and, like, just crazy, like, he has millions in the bank and he'll use this money to, like, buy a house and set it up for he and his new bride or whatever. Like, it was very clearly a case of somebody who really has kind of lost themselves and reality. So that was kind of a chilling moment, and it kind of shows you where his head was. So he started to kind of believe his own lies, as we see through that note. In March, so he wrote that note in January. In March, one of his daughters was using his computer, and Jesse messaged him. And the daughter, of course, very upset, told her mother. And Cindy, Thomas's wife, kind of hit the roof, as you would expect.
Yeah.
And she ended up finding gifts from Jesse. She found letters, she found photos, she found a pair of red panties.
Ooh.
Yeah. And she was pretty upset, obviously. But this is really cool. They had trouble for a while, I think. And I think the online gaming kind of was part of that. For a while, he had been staying up on the computer all night, even before the Jesse situation. That just made it worse. And I think they had talked about divorce. And obviously, they had a big talk about it after she found the red panties, as you do.
I think it's time to end.
So, but she interestingly took the step of writing a letter to Jesse. And it wasn't aggressive. You know, she wrote a letter saying she sent a picture actually of her family. Explaining that the man in the center is Tom, her husband, since 1989, and she told Jesse that he's 46 years old. And it was actually kind of a nice letter because she said that Jesse should be more careful with her online safety. As an 18-year-old girl,
right?
You never know who you're talking to.
Exactly.
So she kind of took that stance, which was really cool. Obviously, Thomas was banished to the basement. They decided not to get a divorce right away. But he was relegated to the basement, and that's where he was living. And they were kind of doing that.
Really?
Sort of. Yeah.
That's so strange. We're actually not going to get a divorce now.
Yeah.
You're going to live in the basement. Is she actually the crazy one in this story?
No, I think Cindy's cool. I think Cindy's really cool. I think it's cool that she took it upon herself to write a letter to Jesse warning her, you know? So anyway, Jessie was really, really, really hurt, and she kind of freaked out. She messaged Brian, who is a guy that she knew to be a coworker of Thomas in his real life job. So the factory where Thomas worked, which was the Dynablade factory outside Buffalo, New York, Brian Barrett, who was 22 years old, whose screen name was, get ready for it, Beefcake.
Is there a number after that?
There is not. He's the only Beefcake.
Okay.
He's the OG Beefcake.
The OG Beefcake.
Yes.
Hashtag OG Beefcake.
Yes. So Brian Barrett worked at the same Dynablade factory where Thomas had worked for 12 years. And he was attending Buffalo State College and was an aspiring industrial arts teacher. And he coached Little League in the summers, and he seemed to be just an all-around really great kid. His coach called him an easygoing, quiet kid. Anything you asked him to do, he never complained about it. He never complained about running, never complained about drills. And even the athletic director at his school said that nobody could say anything bad about him. So Jessie reaches out to Brian, who she also knew through these online gaming chat rooms, to be a real-life associate of Thomas, or who she knew as Tommy, to kind of confirm her what Cindy had told her in the letter. And Brian did confirm it for her. And then after a while, the two of them kind of began an online relationship of their own.
Ooh.
Yes, they also sent pictures, and they chatted a lot, and they spent a lot of time in these online gaming chat rooms where Thomas Montgomery, Marine Sniper, also was present. And as these things usually go, Jessie sort of began using Brian and her relationship with Brian to get back at Marine Sniper. So they would message him and call him out on message boards and stuff for being 47. They would call him like a child molester or whatever to get a rise out of him. But the whole time, what Brian didn't know is that Jessie was still talking to Thomas.
Oh.
So it seemed like they kind of couldn't, she kind of couldn't break it off with him. And there are some like really ridiculous chat transcripts that I read through that are basically, them talking about Tommy and mourning him as though he's like this real person that has died. Which is it's an interesting sort of...
Yeah, that's a little weird.
It is, and they both, she'll say things like, I wish Tommy was still here. I wish he could be my Tommy, and Montgomery will respond and be like, but he's dead.
That sounds like some sort of weird reverse thing happening with her. You know what I mean? Like, she's also like she was so invested in that too, maybe that like for it to all of a sudden not be real.
Yeah,
it's like shit, like
right. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And it definitely seems to be that sort of situation where they just can't separate themselves.
Let go of the worlds that they created.
Right. So eventually, they end up back together. And for a brief time, Jessie and Montgomery were back together. Montgomery this time as, being his true self, a 47-year-old married man with 2 children. And this was really where he kind of had it all. He had the hot young teenage girl, and he was being honest about who he was. So I think at this point in time, he probably felt more accepted than he ever had because she knew who he was and she was still into it. Unfortunately, that didn't last long.
Damn it! I thought it was gonna be
right off into the sunset.
Right off into the sunset. Tall, hot blonde, and what was his name?
Marine Sniper.
Marine Sniper.
Hot young redheaded Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not what happens. Jessie decides to break up with Montgomery again and takes up with Brian once more. Brian Barrett. And at this point, I think this is really where we see Montgomery, his downward spiral really kicking into high speed. I think he's been on a downward spiral for a while. Definitely not in a good place. But I think this is where we see his break with reality really starting to have some really, really, really dark consequences. So Brian posted that he was visiting, he was on a work trip to North Carolina, and he was planning to visit Jesse on a message board. He posted it in public on the message board, and Montgomery saw it. Apparently that was the last straw for him. He had never met Jesse in person. I don't know if it's like a jealousy thing that now Brian was actually going to meet her.
Yeah, like how dare he meet her before me?
Right. Yeah, I don't know if he was worried that they would consummate the relationship or what the deal was. But on September 15th of 2006, at about 10 p.m., Montgomery hit his breaking point. And Brian Barrett, who had just finished a shift at the Dynablade factory, was sitting in his car in the parking lot. And he was shot 3 times in the neck and the left arm. Ironically, when the police arrived, the police chief described it as a sniper shooting.
Ooh.
Yeah, I thought that was particularly poignant. Brian had been sitting in his truck after work, and there was actually a witness who saw somebody in the area. But unfortunately, they didn't find Brian's body until 2 days later. So he was shot on September 15th, and somebody later had heard shots in the area and saw someone running, but the police didn't find him until, I guess, the 17th. And after that, when they started talking to people, it didn't take them long to put 2 and 2 together. Once they kind of started pulling computer records and found out about Jessie, they were really, really worried about her safety. Obviously, with Montgomery kind of unhinged, they were concerned that if he had hurt Brian, that he potentially could hurt Jessie. So the police kind of they're able to figure out where Jessie is, who she is, where she lives. So they go out to warn her and check on her for her safety. And when they arrived at her address, a middle-aged woman named Mary Sheeler opened the door. Yes. Are you shocked? I feel like it took forever to get there because I've known this whole time and you haven't known, and it just feels like it took a really long time to get there.
I didn't even think that.
I told you I was serving up Jilted Lovers with a side of catfishing. Double catfishing.
Why did I not even think? I did not even think of that.
Double catfishing.
Did not even think of that.
So, Mary Sheeler.
That's why she kind of was maybe going back to him.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe she saw something of herself. Yes. So Mary Sheeler, I'm assuming it's pronounced Sheeler. I could be wrong. Please send me emails. I'm sure you will. Mary Sheeler, 45 years old, also married, and also a mother of 2. One source that I had said she was a mother of 2. One source that I had said she was a mother of 3. So maybe a mother of 2.5. I don't know. Basically, Mary had been posing as her teenage daughter, Jessica.
Oh, that's gross.
The entire time.
That's gross.
The photos. The photos were her daughter.
Nude pictures? She was sending nude ones? Was that?
I don't know. I don't know that I kind of dug for that. I can't imagine that it was like actual nude photos of her daughter herself.
'Cause I'm like, how would you?
Yeah, I don't think that was the case because the daughter, of course, was completely unaware that this was going on. So it may have been like a Photoshop sort of situation, but she definitely had sent photos of her daughter to Tommy as part of this online relationship. So yeah.
Ooh.
I wish you guys could see the look on his face right now. You can't hear it, but I can see it.
That's like cutting into a juicy ribeye. You know, and you get that little bit of fat in there, and you just let it just burst in your mouth when you eat it. So good.
Yeah, but so bad, so awful.
Yes, awful, yes. Definitely awful, but like. The story itself, very juicy.
Right. Yeah, so Jessie had no idea. Real life Jessie had no idea what her mother was doing. Apparently, this is something that had been going on for a long time. Her husband didn't know either, obviously. And Montgomery was charged November 27th. So shortly thereafter, Montgomery was charged with murder, and he pled guilty. As part of his plea bargain, he received a 20-year sentence. So, and part of what helped them solve the case, prosecutors said that Montgomery's DNA was found on a peach pit at the crime scene. You know, you always got to bring your snacks when you're going to murder.
He was chewing on a peach.
Yeah, you always got to have snacks, especially when you're murdering people. Apparently, there was a photo of the Montgomery family's gun cabinet, which also showed the old military rifle that was used to shoot Barrett. And those were the keys to the case against him. When the police pulled the chat correspondences between, obviously they pulled correspondence from Brian Barrett's computer, from Thomas Montgomery's computer, and from Mary Sheeler's computer. When they pulled those correspondence, there were hundreds and hundreds of pages that were compiled by investigators for the case. So you might be asking, what happened to Mary Sheeler?
Yeah, like, what happened to her?
Nothing.
Well,
prosecutors searched for a way to charge her long and hard. They wanted to charge her for something, for anything in the case, but they concluded that she may, quote, may have tramped all over the moral and ethical line, but she never crossed the legal one.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, she was chatting with someone. I mean, yeah, she lied, and there was some ethical things going on, but, like,
yeah,
she didn't tell him to go kill this man.
Yeah, no, not at all. So she was never officially charged with anything.
But she's bound to have felt some sort of guilt towards this.
She's only ever talked about it once. She talked about it once to the BBC in an interview. And she said, quote, "It was stupid. It should never have happened. I just never thought it would go anywhere, that it would end, fall off, and that would be the end of it." End quote.
She got addicted.
I think she was just as addicted as Montgomery. I obviously think that Montgomery had a whole lot more going on mentally, maybe, with him.
No, it's definitely, that was both parties definitely addicted, and that's just insane.
Yeah. So Mary's husband divorced her, obviously, and her daughters cut ties with her. The real life Jessie cut ties with her, and I believe her other daughter as well. So yeah, that's what happened with her. And Thomas, I believe he was sentenced in November. I think it was November 2007. So 20 years would be in November 2027. I couldn't find any updates on like his release dates or anything like that. He did do quite a few interviews as parts of documentaries and like specials that have been done on this case, and he seems really repentant now. I'm not making any excuses for him at all, but it does seem that there's a through line in his life of this addictive personality. You know, first it's addicted to the idea of combat as a Marine, and then it's an addiction to alcohol, and then it's an addiction to online gambling and gaming. And then it's this addiction to this vision of this 18-year-old.
It really just all stems from a place of really just this deep, like, self-loathing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you hate your life. You hate, you just feel that so deeply within your core that, like, you feel as if your only option is to act out by doing these, by creating this,
by escaping,
this world,
basically.
And and I don't know, quote unquote Talhotblond's, what she was trying to like escape from. There might be some issues there, obviously,
right.
But yeah, I mean, that's just, it's really tragic all the way around. But
it is. It's terrible. The thing about this case that is so awful, and the thing that you're left with when you look at it, when you go through all the crazy twists and turns. Brian Barrett.
Yeah.
The one person who ends up paying the ultimate price in this case is the only guy who's telling the truth.
Right.
You know, he really was 22 years old. He really was a student. And that's what you're left with is, you know, you have these two people who are pretending to be these other people, and who are building this elaborate fantasy, and the only person who ends up really paying the ultimate price is the guy who was just being himself.
Well, you know, they say it's like, you know, when you feel that sort of, way that it's like it's almost like the same thing that you would see in, like, drug addicts and cocaine users. Like, that same part of the brain fires up in a cocaine addict that it does with, like, someone who is, quote unquote, you know, like, going back to, like, jilted lover syndrome. Like, it's that sort of addiction lights up the same way. So,
I totally agree. I think one interesting thing in the 2009 documentary for the Talhotblond case, they said something very similar to that love is the greatest human addiction.
Oh, yeah.
And all the other addictions can't quite compare to that one.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's the one that we're just stuck on.
Yeah. Well, that was, like I said, extremely tragic. I will say, I actually watched a very interesting film. So this is a little bit more lighthearted.
Good. Yeah, that's probably good. So how are you guys feeling? Are you feeling uplifted? Are you just really feel good? Feel good vibes?
Damn. I came over here for some, like,
for some
good-hearted horror.
Yeah. No. So what movie did you watch? What is this?
So this movie actually had to, like, scour the internet to find. Oh no, I watched it legally.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, very important, very important.
I watched it legally. I bought it on Amazon.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's a 2009 movie called The Loved Ones. And it's actually an Australian horror film. And, you know, we both know how much
I love Australian horror.
Specifically Australian horror.
It's just fantastic.
Because they're so crazy.
Yes. I'm convinced that an Australian woman can basically defeat any foe and or save me from any sort of situation.
I mean, essentially.
If you haven't seen You're Next, just watch it. You'll understand.
Crazy. And also the opposite end of the spectrum, like the serial killers are like, you either get it's two extremes. You get, like, the extreme, like, final girl who's like, fuck you.
Yes.
Badass.
Yes.
And then you get, like, the extreme killer who's like, you're not getting away. You know what I mean?
Another great one for the killer is Wolf Creek.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. That is an old favorite of ours.
I know you guys can't see it, but that look he gives you, that you probably works really so well with the candles right now.
Yes. We'll have to post a picture on Instagram so that you guys can see Kenny's impersonation of that guy. It's amazing.
We'll do that. We'll post a picture of his face with a picture of mine.
With your face. Yes.
So we'll have to remember to do that. But anyway, so I knew you would really like this because it's Australian horror.
Yes. I'm very excited.
So it's, again, like I said, a 2009 film. It's directed by Sean Byrne, starring Xavier Samuel and Robin McLeavy. And it's essentially about this high school kid, this guy, who gets into an accident with his father. And his father ends up dying, so he starts the film sort of like really...
That is quite an accident. Oh, you mean a car accident?
Yeah, like a car accident.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. Yeah,
I'm thinking like just like an accident. Like
he gets into
I spilled this on the carpet.
No, he gets into a car accident.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay.
Anyway, he gets into a car accident with his dad, and so he starts the film really sort of like suicidal, I guess, because he feels he was driving the car. And he was learning how to drive at that point. So he sort of, felt like it was his fault.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like Suburbia. And I hate to make a Shia LaBeouf reference on our very first episode. But that's kind of like the beginning of Suburbia.
It's over. We're done.
No.
Putting the stop button.
No. I will be his last fan standing.
Anyway.
Even if it kills me, and it might.
Well, if it kills you, I'll report about it here on the podcast.
Yes, you have to let the 3 listeners know.
So, anyway, so he's in high school, and this girl comes up to him, and it's prom, and she asks him to go to prom with her. And he's like, all angsty. He's got his hair in his face, very like 2005 emo, like going back.
I love it. I was very into it at one point.
He's just like, no, I'm going with someone else. And she gives him this like, oh, look that is absolutely insane. So anyway, he ends up going, he's trying to actually, he has a girlfriend, but that he's going to the prom with, but before he meets her, he goes to try to commit suicide, or he thinks about it. He doesn't go through with it, but he thinks about it. But in this process, he is abducted by this man who actually turns out to be the father of the girl.
Oh, who was mad because the girl liked him, or mad because he didn't go to prom with her?
So there's this weird... I'll get into that.
Okay.
So he kidnaps this guy, or this boy, and so the guy, the boy, he wakes up, and they've set up their own prom. Like, set up their own prom. He wakes up, he's tied, and gagged to a chair, and he's in like a suit. Mm-hmm. And so the daughter and the father have like this weird sort of like relationship where he's trying to make her happy by finding her a boyfriend. Mm. And they actually play this really weird song. I'll actually link that too. I'll actually link the song.
That's like the worst, like one of the worst situations to wake up like bound would be at a prom, at like a weird creepy private prom.
So it's really like he wakes up in this like shack of a dining room that's like
it's
really sort of creepy, and they've got a disco ball, they've got streamers.
The more festive it is, the more it's gonna hurt. Like it's just gonna be so bad.
I'm talking disco ball, streamers. They've got little party hats or whatever. Okay.
Well, you can't have a party without a party hat,
right?
So if there's a party hat there,
no, the party hat. It's like a little. They had like little paper crowns to crown her the queen of the prom.
Oh, okay.
And he's to be the king of the prom.
There you go.
But there's like a whole bunch of. I'm not gonna talk about everything, but there's he's trying to figure out like, okay, how the hell am I going to get out from this? Because he as he's watching this, like the relationship between the daughter and the father is it's a lot weirder than that. Because she's essentially trying to look for her perfect mate. Mm-hmm. And he's obviously not the first guy that they've abducted.
Oh, so what happened to the imperfect mates?
So what they would do is she took a fork and carved a heart into his chest with their initials on it, and then stood back and threw salt.
Girl, that's not good though. Why are you gonna mess up a perfectly good chest like that?
Honey,
how you gonna snuggle with that? How you gonna snuggle with that open wound?
One of the parts that I really thought was actually kind of funny was he's sitting there and he's trying to figure out a way to to escape, and he goes to the same thing that everybody goes to, which is I've got to go to the bathroom. Which I'm tell you what, if I'm abducting somebody, I'm sorry, motherfucker, you can sit there and piss your pants. Like I'm not gonna let you go to the bathroom.
Yeah, you wouldn't imagine that people would be as concerned with that? Like, abductors would be? So the same way I escaped kindergarten, homeroom is going to be how I'm going to escape this crazy prom abductress.
She grabs this glass of milk because they're eating, like, milk and chicken for their prom meals.
Oh, God.
Downs it, gets down.
That's the scariest part of the story. Milk and chicken?
Right.
You
So
know that
she
chicken
gets-
was dry, too.
You know it was.
You know it was dry.
So she gets down there and like unzips his pants for him to pee in the glass. And then obviously it was a lie. So he's like, and she just looks up at him and she's like, go. And he can't go.
I mean, maybe it wasn't a lie. I mean, it definitely was a lie. But, like, I feel like I don't think I could pee on command into a glass that someone else is holding.
Well,
Some people are shy.
some people are. But this bitch looked up at him and said, are you telling Porky Pies? And I confirmed this with an actual Australian. That is Australian slang for lies. But the way she looked up and she had that glass and said, are you telling Porky Pies?
Oh
And
my
it was
gosh. I wish
awful.
either of us could do an Australian accent right now, but
I
we
really can't.
we just cannot. We just cannot.
So it's a very interesting film. Like, you know, at the end of it, she decides that he is not her prom king, but that her father is.
Okay.
So they have a very weird moment.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, it feels like we were moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Like that, we were heading there.
But like they go and she has this book and like she's been doing this and he's been trying to find her like for years, like ever since she was a little girl. So like he was abducting like little boys when she was a little girl. And it was really insane. It was a good movie. I would rate it like maybe a 3.5 out of 5. Like there were some weird points in it that didn't make a lot of sense, but overall it was a good film. You know, them Australians make pretty good films.
So what happened to him?
Well, so he eventually escapes because there's this other weird thing that they do where they like, once they realize that he's, you know, that they're not, this isn't the one.
Right.
They drill a hole into the victim's skull and put like cleaner in it.
Like Windex?
And hot water. I don't know what it was.
Are we allowed to say Windex? Is Windex trademarked?
I don't know.
Right. Well,
But it like stews their brains and then they throw them in the pit, in this like weird pit at the bottom of the house. And so like...
oh, so it's like a Dahmer thing.
Yeah, so like...
That's kind of like Dahmer's Love Zombies.
Yeah, so there's like these weird like creatures that live under the house, which are all like former...
oh, no.
like men that all have like, you know, holes in their head.
Right.
Because their brains are like fucked.
Right. Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That tends to happen when you
but
when you pour some good old cleaner into your brain.
He actually ends up down there and she's like, I'm all right. So he escapes, ends up killing her father, which then like really, really fucks with her. And, you know, she like pushes him down into this like inescapable hole. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to go kill that bitch that you were going to go to prom with. And I'm going to kill your mother. That's what I'm going to do. Anyway, he eventually escapes, tracks her down, and runs her over.
With a car?
Times. Yeah, with a car.
Good.
With her.
Does he do the old reverse move?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, it was the reverse move.
Beautiful.
So she actually made it to his girlfriend, and like they had a struggle, and she was running away. He comes in with a car, sees the crazy girl, hits her, goes and picks up his girlfriend, who was running down the road away from the girl, and like grabs her, and then like next thing you know, like the girl who had been hit with a car like has her knife and is like inching along the road using her knife, like just still so determined to get to this guy and like kill them. And then, you know, he backs up and just like runs her over, so her body like
That's the one.
she's lifted up like this, and the car comes back and like and like hits her.
I wish you guys could see these hand movements. They were very scientific.
But it was
again, this is a podcast.
And you know and then even interestingly enough, there was this really crazy guy who loved this film, and this is an actual this is an actual thing. He loved this film. And he copycatted that film and killed his best friend in the same manner. Like found. He particularly liked this film so much that the victim, who was a friend of his, was brutally beaten, sustained 49 knife wounds, and had cleaning fluid found in his eyes. And he had salt in his wounds too. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
Did he do like the heart thing, or you don't?
I don't
maybe
know
wasn't
that he did the
specific?
heart thing. It just says that he was just brutally, tortured. But I know that he had, lesions and stuff on his body, and that he had rubbed salt in his wounds and had cleaning fluid injected into his eyes, not his skull, but
I feel like the eyes are worse.
yeah,
Injection into the eyes is worse. Ow.
yeah. But he got life imprisonment, yeah, for that.
I mean,
so,
that's a good way to get it. Just
but
kind
just
of.
god awful.
That's crazy. So that movie's called The Loved Ones.
The Loved Ones, yes, definitely check it out. It's a pretty good film. So,
Interesting.
yeah, man.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, me.
Yes, lots of jilted lover action going on. So to kind of, I guess, close us out, we haven't talked about any witchy stuff yet.
And if you haven't noticed or realized, Katie is your resident witch.
Sort of, kind of. I mean, enough. Yeah, so I figured it might be fun to look at different spells that you can use if you are a jilted lover. I do not endorse any of this officially, nor does Kenny. Neither of us endorse it. You cannot endorse this.
No, I don't.
So neither of us endorse this, but we thought it would be fun to kind of look at like revenge spells and like kind of what that sort of rationale is. So I found this great website. It really is just a high class source called spellsofmagic.com.
Blatantlyobvious.com.
Absolutely. So the web design here is just something that I'm not sure if I can describe it with the words that I know.
Oh, I've been on that website.
Yeah, right? It's great. So the first one we'll take a look at is a spell to punish a lover for leaving you, right? So apparently you carve the name of your target on the phallic red candle. Just, you know the one, the phallic red candle that you have around your house.
For a split second, I thought you were going to say the chest.
Yeah, you just carve and then you salt. That's what you, yeah? No. So you're going to carve your lover's name into the phallic red candle. Hopefully it's like a short name, like Tom or Bill. Because otherwise you're going to be carving a while.
What was... Tall, hot, blonde.
Tall, hot, blonde. Maybe that's the reason the other letter's missing. Make it quicker.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? Cast your magic circle. It should contain an inverted pentagram with the spirit point facing south. Light the incense. Place 2 black candles on the fire and water points of your pentagram. Holding the bottom with your trash bag, light the phallic red candle. They really like that word.
Phallic.
I feel like we're just going to start putting it places that it doesn't even belong. We're just going to sprinkle it
Let
in.
me talk into my phallic-shaped microphone.
Oh, God. Now I'm not going to be able to unsee it. So we're lighting the phallic red candle, and we're using it to light the other 2 black candles. Be sure to do so in a counterclockwise rotation. And then you place the red candle. Where's the phallic adjective? Now it's not a phallic red candle because it's lit? I don't understand. So we're placing the phallic red candle across from you on the opposite side of the circle with the name of the target facing you. We're going to smooth the trash bag over the center of your pentagram, pass the personal possession from your target through the incense smoke, and then toss it cavalierly into the trash bag.
Okay.
That is like adverb, like 100 points for that adverb, cavalierly. So we're going to hold a rose by its stem over the flame. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of props.
This is what
in
happens
this
when you're
situation.
obsessed. You
just have all of these things.
Yeah, I mean, you really get into it.
Is that a red flag that you're becoming like obsessed with somebody if you just start buying phallic red candles?
as I look around at all of the phallic candles.
We're in a room just surrounded by phallic red candles everywhere.
No,
you actually can't move without like hitting one.
There's actually 2 phallic red candles right over here. Yeah.
So we got this rose. I don't know where we got it from. We're holding it by its stem over the flame of the candle, allowing it to color as it burns without lighting on fire. I'm not sure I understand that sentence. Apparently, as we do this, we're going to visualize our former lover experiencing an agonizing burning sensation in their genitals.
Ooh. Is this a passionate burning, or is it like, ouch?
I don't. It says agonizing,
Oh.
so I'm feeling like it's probably not good. Whatever it is.
Some people.
Maybe some people are probably into that.
Line. Pain into pleasure.
So after we do that with the agonizing genital burn, we're going to cut the rose into 3 pieces, leaving the petals attached to one piece, and toss them one by one into the trash bag with the personal possession. I don't know if we do that cavalierly. It doesn't say. Maybe we do that with great purpose.
Great purpose. Great intent.
As you do, recite the following incantation: red rose, with thorns so thick, cut, slice, graze. Oh, not glaze. Glaze is something different. Glaze is a good thing. No. I'm going to try again. Okay. Very serious. Red rose, with thorns so thick, cut, slice, graze, and prick.
This dick.
It was going so well.
I had to. It was just there.
Third time's the charm. Okay. Red rose, with thorns so thick, cut, slice, graze, and prick. As I have cried, now so shall they. Make pleasure they feel, now turn to pain. Let them suffer this awful fate. Pray that their apology does not come late, for if they do not pay their dues, they'll find themselves broken beyond any use. And that's the end. There's no period, but I think that's the end. So then we close our magic circle. We snuff out our candles in a counterclockwise rotation. We place the candle remainers in the trash with the rest of the regents. And we tie the bag shut and dispose of it in a crude place. Specifically,
a crude place.
Like a dumpster or a sewer drain. Don't do that. Don't dispose of things in sewer drains. That is littering. That is not cool. Anybody out there casting spells, witchcraft, do not litter.
I'll throw it in a dumpster.
It's not cool. Put it in a dumpster so that it can be carried away. Don't litter, people.
It was supposed to be a crude place?
Yeah, it has to be a crude place.
I'll take it to work.
Like a dumpster behind a bowling alley. That's where I would put it. So that's supposed to literally and metaphorically say good riddance to the bad trash. Expect the spell to take effect within a week. The spell's effects usually last between 3 days and a full lunar cycle, depending on the intensity of your hatred for the victim. Interesting. Yeah. So, personally, I'm not really into any ritual or spell or anything like that that's designed to like punish somebody else. That's not my deal. Like, I think that you get back from the universe what you put out into the universe. So if what you put out is good and positive energy and, helping people and being good to people, then you get that back, But I personally, I don't think that that's a good use for magic. And I think it always comes back to you tenfold. I think anything you do to somebody else comes back to you tenfold. So, but anyway, there were some funny ones. I'm just going to call out a couple of the names of these. You guys can research them on your own on the fabulous spellsofmagic.com. There's a cat curse to turn your lover into a cat.
Okay.
Which personally, I don't know that I would be that mad about.
Winifred Sanderson did that, I believe. I know that spell.
Yes, absolutely. I had forgotten about that, actually, when I read about the cat curse.
Twist the bones and bend the back. Itchy-ticka-malaca mystica. Love that. Yeah, I know that one.
So good. Yeah, so you're familiar with that one. I don't think I would be mad at that one. I think I'd be fine getting a cat.
Oh, okay. I've got 9 lives now. Thanks.
Right. Thanks. There is a fat curse to make your lover fat.
Who has cursed me? Where the fuck are you?
Right?
Who did it?
Like, I thought you said you weren't a jilted lover.
Yeah, but who knows?
Oh,
I could have jilted
maybe
somebody
so.
that I just did not
Maybe.
know. Someone could have been like, hey, do you have a pen? And I could have been like, no. And they're like, ultimate shooketh.
Ultimate shooketh.
And they're like, you know what? Fat curse on you.
Right? That's what happened. There's the ever popular condom curse.
Oh, God.
Which is exactly what it sounds like. You don't ever want to...
You don't need magic to do that, though.
You don't... Right. You just need to be crafty. Yeah. That's a terrible one. That is awful.
You know what would happen to the person that cast that? They'd end up with triplets.
Yes. I feel like... I really do believe that's the way it works, man. I think if you put that out into the universe and you try to put that on somebody else, you might be successful. But ultimately, I think you're paying the price. And then my other favorite one was the mind of a frog curse. Just because it's so creative. Like, I read that and I was like, what would that be like? Like, what do frogs think about?
Like, I can actually see that being very, like,
Relaxing.
Terrible. Well, no, like, terrible.
I feel like it would be like a vacation.
Somebody to have the mind of a frog. So then they're just, like, in this, like, headspace and you just leave them there. So... You know what I mean? Like, you just have this person that's just left with, like, trying to catch flies. And then they're just left to be, admitted to an insane asylum for the rest of their lives. Trying to catch flies.
I mean, but usually what I found with, at least the ones that I looked at, they all had time limits. Like, the fat curse, I think, only works for, like, a couple weeks or whatever. And then you have to cast it again. So, I don't know. Maybe it would be cool to think like a frog for, like, maybe a day. I mean, definitely less stressful.
Yeah. That's true, I guess.
I don't know. But, yeah, those are spells that, again, we do not endorse you to cast, but it's pretty fun to read about them.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool to sort of look into it. Obviously, respect it.
Right.
Yeah. But not condoning any of you doing any crazy shit to other people.
Yeah, don't be Glenn Close.
Do not.
Only Glenn Close can be Glenn Close.
Exactly. Not you.
Not you. So that's Jilted Lovers.
Yes, it's been really exciting trying to get all of this information, together for you. We really hope that you've enjoyed it. We, decided on this theme for, Valentine's Day.
That's right. We hadn't mentioned Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
We love you.
All.
Probably like 1.5 of you now.
Yeah, probably nobody by now.
But thank you so much for listening. Again, we are new at this, so we will grow.
We're only going to get better. We're at level 1 right now. Just wait till you see us at level 10.
It's going to be really similar to level 1. Just going to set those expectations. But yeah, so thanks so much for listening. We hope to see you back next week. And until then, take care.
Have a good day, night. It's nighttime now, so I'm going to tell you to have a good night.
Keep it spooky.